Welcome to the Fish House Nation podcast. We are at the St. Paul Ice Show, wrapping up our coverage here on day 3. We've got Josh Clawson with us, and Josh is a tournament angler and really a guy that you may know if you like to watch ice fishing videos. Josh, tell us a little bit about yourself. Give us a little intro.
Yeah, so first off, thanks for having me, Chris. I former tournament angler. I'm not fishing the tournaments anymore, but I fished NAIFC tournaments and the TEIFT tournament circuit for a number of years, and that's actually where I met Mike Olson with Fish Addictions, and we've been collaborating on things ever since. So
awesome. What about your tournament experience? Where were you at there? What were you doing?
We fished mainly across Minnesota, North Dakota, some in Wisconsin. And I mean, is how tournaments go. Some tournaments you do good, some tournaments you do bad. It's all based on the fish. You put in, all your pre-work days, a week at a time, sometimes pre-fishing these lakes, dialing in bites, and you get a weather change come through during the tournament. So it's just the luck of the draw, so to speak. But we did have some good finishes. A lot of top 10 finishes. I believe we got 10th at one of the national championships, and yeah, just a fun time though. So
yeah, what was your experience like at Fish Addictions?
Really good. So me and Mike had met, and kind of the inception of Fish Addictions initially was to do short video reports that you could watch on your cell phone. And we spent almost 2 years doing that, just me and him filming each other back and forth. And then from there it evolved into the syndicated television show that we got now. So
awesome. You're not doing TV with them really anymore?
I am, yeah. I still get on a few episodes. I've relocated, so I'm in southern Wisconsin now to when we started doing that stuff. I was in Grand Forks, North Dakota.
Awesome. And so what we wanted to talk to you today about was taking the things that you've learned on the tournament circuit and converting those into recreational angling to help kind of the average everyday angler catch more fish. What do you see when you're out fishing with recreational anglers? Where do you see kind of the holes in their game?
So a big part is the pre-planning, I think. With tournaments, essentially on tournament day, you're working against the clock. Efficiency, time. I mean, the faster you can get up, get down, get different baits in front of fish, is all in your benefit, because you've only got so much time on the ice in a tournament day. So everything counts. Efficiency is a big deal. So with like your recreational guys, if you go out and they say they've got 2 fishing rods that they bring out, or they only own 2 rods, and we're going out, and maybe they haven't even tied a lure on, and they get out to the lake and they're tying something on and they fish. The ability to adjust when you get feedback from the fish through your electronics is a big one that I see, to where they'll leave the same bait on all day long and not switch it out, try something different, a different pattern. So
how do you prepare when you're getting on an ice fishing trip?
So, and I recreation fish just like I'm still tournament fishing, and that's something that's I don't think I will ever lose from that past tournament fishing experience. If I know I'm going to be going fishing on, say, just a Saturday, I'm looking at fishing reports from years past on different internet forums. I'm studying contour maps. I'm looking at weather patterns. Let's say I'm going to go chase bluegills and it's early ice. I'm going to rig 8 to 10 rods, with different colored baits, different profile baits. Generally it's fishing plastics. I always have meat as just a backup, tough bite or something like that. A weather system comes in. It's nice to have a little flavor down there to seal the deal. Generally though, generally speaking with plastics, the way that the plastics are made today, just the different flexibilities in the rubber or plastic that they're using in the molds, you can't not make a move. Even if you try to hold that thing still, there's still going to be some movement down under the ice. But just having options is a big deal. Being able to, you get rejected by a fish, reel that up, set that rod down, grab a different rod, get that down as fast as you can in front of that same fish to show them a different presentation option, is a big deal. And I do see that a lot. Also just fish behavior, being able to study what fish do, how seasonal patterns, seasonal movements, where those fish are going to be on particular lakes at different times of the year, different times of the day, being able to predict and then have options as a backup plan. And I always tell people you got to have a lot of options, and that's not just the lure, that's not just the rod, that's not just the line, rod, lure, line combination. That's the options of the location, backup plan, plan A, plan B, plan C, plan D, different types of scenarios that you're going to run into different lakes have different composition. Every lake is unique. You know, you're going to get some patterns that are consistent from lake to lake, but there's going to be subtle nuances around the bottom substrate, the different weed growth in there. If you got snow cover, different snow cover, just the geography of the lake, the surrounding area as well. Those are all factors that come into play. You got to take all of that stuff into the equation and kind of dissect all of that information and put a game plan together. Another big one is have a game plan and stick to that game plan. I've seen this time and time again with recreation guys or just your weekend warrior type anglers that, and that's the difference there is the mindset. I'm out there, I have a mission, and the mission is to catch as many fish as possible to make it a successful day. Granted, getting out on the ice and just hanging out with a bunch of buddies, that's great too, but even when we're out filming and stuff, I'm just like, go find the fish, go find the fish, go find the fish. I get stuck in that mentality when I'm on the ice, which it's a lot of fun, but that's a reward for me, is to have that game plan in place and successfully complete that game plan to where you accomplished what you wanted to do when you left your house in the morning out on the ice.
Yeah, you left. That was quite a nugget right there. It's going to take us a little while to unwrap that, but one of the things that you brought up there was plastics.
Yeah,
and you kind of talked about the action of it, but what are really some of the main advantages for you for using plastic? Why do you choose to do that?
Let's say you miss a fish. You don't have to worry if they pluck the bait off your hook. That plastic's going to be more durable than a waxworm or a spike. Again, talking panfish here. The plastics can impart a very lifelike movement in them, depending on your jigging cadence, that's going to allow you to show the fish something that you're not going to get out of a waxworm or a spike. You can rig plastics on various types of hooks or jigs, or if it's a horizontal presentation, a vertical presentation, or a vertical presentation. And back to having options, so you can have the option of how your jig stroke is. If you're doing a quarter-inch little bumps at a very fast cadence, or if you're doing half-inch, kind of making that swim as opposed to vibrate. You can do those little quarter-inch bumps and do about a 2-inch jump up about every 5-6 bumps, and that's actually how those microscopic organisms swim in the water. They kind of flutter in place, and then they'll shoot up, an inch at a time, and then they'll shoot up an inch at a time. And you're trying to mimic that. Granted, the plastics are much larger than what is realistically down there for the most part. I mean, if you're looking at bloodworms, you got plastics that are the exact same size as bloodworms. If you're looking at some of the zooplankton type things, they're like as small as the knot in your line, so we can't actually get a hook that's that small unless you're doing something like a size 32 fly for fly fishing. But I guess the advantage of plastics, lifelike motion, many different color combinations, just like throwing plastics for walleyes open water. The typical jig and a twister tail, there are thousands of color combinations you could put together. You can rig them differently. They put off different vibrations. The different shape of the plastic is going to put off a different little subtle vibration, and that's going to be related to the fish through the lateral line, that feeling of what that bait feels like. So you got a visual stimulation, you've got a sensory stimulation, and then even with some of the new tungsten jigs like the Acme Google Eye tungsten jig, now we got a rattle, so we got sound, movement, and visual appeal, all in that bait presentation. And then there are certain plastics that I prefer, and I will take I even here at the St. Paul Ice Show, I love coming here because every single year there's new plastics on the market, and I go to every single booth and see what they've got for color combinations, and then for the shapes of the bait, and then also the flexibility or how soft that plastic is. Some plastics that are too stiff, you don't get the movement out of them, but they move more water because they're stiffer, so you get more vibration out of them. So I've got just your Plano, the 12-inch trays. I've got those sectioned off, so as many dividers in there. I think I've got 5 of them now. All kinds of different plastics, and I don't bring all of that out on the ice with me, but that's just kind of my stockpile. And I'll go through and jig in like a pitcher of water on the kitchen table. My wife thinks I'm crazy, but I'm rigging up.
It doesn't sound crazy at all.
Yeah, right. But I'll sit there and I want to know what jig stroke I need to impart on this piece of plastic to make it look and swim how I think it should look and swim. And since the advent of the underwater camera, you can now watch how your jig stroke relates to fish activity.
Hey guys, we're doing a show right now. Yeah, we're live at the show, and sometimes I don't lock the door, and people slide in to check things out. So, the magic of live shows.
But yeah, I mean, the biggest thing to know with plastics is how to jig them. Another thing with plastics is, I'm not going to say they don't work if they're not moving, but you want to continuously move that plastic. If you're doing a certain jigging cadence, you're getting a really good undulating motion out of that plastic. Maybe it looks like a small leech, maybe it looks like a mayfly larva swimming. And you get that motion going, and that's drawing fish in. A lot of guys, when they see that mark get close to their lure, they freeze up and they stop, and then that mark is going to fade away. What you want to do is invoke a chase response. You want to continue that jigging cadence, maybe speed it up a little bit, because if you're thinking about it, you're a little bug down there, and here comes this big predator. Could be a 7-inch bluegill, but that's a monster predator coming after you if you're a little bug. You're going to try and get away from that because you know he's going to try and eat you. So you want to impart that type of scenario or that type of action in that situation to where that fish is going to come in and, oh, he's getting away, I got to speed up and hit him. So
you're trying to just elicit that predator response.
Absolutely,
out of the fish.
even on a prey species like a bluegill.
Awesome. Yeah, they're used to getting chased, but they do some chasing as well. One of the things that you and I have talked before, and one of the things that you kind of like to bring to the game, I think you call it like the rule of threes.
Yeah, absolutely.
Tell us about that.
So, and this actually comes from way back in the day, watching In Fisherman as a little kid on Saturday mornings, and I believe it's Doug Stange. It was something about three as a pattern, and I've turned it into the rule of three. If you get, it's taking to develop a pattern. If you catch 3 fish on the same bait doing the same thing, that's a pattern. So if you're fishing, I'm going to just use bluegills or panfish in general as the scenario here, because you get so much more feedback through your electronics. You have so many more encounters with fish. It's harder to do on a night bite, a daylight transition bite for walleyes on a piece of structure, because you only get so many shots to where bluegills, it can be all day long. So if you get rejected 3 times, change. And when I say change, first I'm going to change my jigging cadence. So I get rejected by a fish 3 times on the same jigging cadence with the same plastic, the same bait. Then I'm going to change my jigging cadence 3 different times. And if I still get rejected 3 times on each of those 3 different jigging cadences, I'm going to switch baits. It could be, generally it's color first, and everyone's got their confidence baits. I like a horizontal tungsten with a flat plastic that pushes a lot of water and has a lot of movement with it. Maybe some appendages up front to give it more of that buggy look. And if you get rejected on 3 different color combinations, by running through that whole scenario, then you change to a different shape or a different profile plastic, something that's pushing water differently. Maybe it's a vertical plastic, maybe it's a horizontal plastic on a vertical jig, which we call vertizontal, just to give it a different look. And for the most part, you're not going to need to run through that many scenarios. It sounds like a lengthy process to really dial it in, but once you catch a fish on that color combination, that jigging cadence combination, if you can repeat that 3 times, now you got a pattern, so now it's repeatable. So that's kind of an explanation on what I call the rule of 3.
Sure. How are you using your electronics?
How am I using my electronics? They're all tools with fishing. You get feedback from those tools, and it's that information. You're consuming information. They're telling you if that fish is. If we just talk a traditional flasher here, you're getting feedback of where your jig is and where that fish is in relationship to your jig, and you can tell if that fish is hot and getting excited and coming up fast, or if he comes up and he's right on your jig and then he's starting to fade away. So you did something wrong. He didn't like whatever you did. So you're getting that type of feedback from your traditional flasher, where it's just a mark on a screen, and you're interpreting what is going on down below you inside your head. You're taking those signal returns on screen, and you're determining what is going on through that type of data transfer, if you will. Now, if we move to an underwater camera, now we have actual imagery of what is going on down there, of how close in proximity that fish is to your bait. So on a traditional flasher, that fish could be not even coming into your bait and just swimming past it, and you don't know that really. You're just assuming, you're making assumptions, to where an underwater camera, you actually know exactly what's going on. But there's some restrictions with an underwater camera because it has a field of view. If you're looking horizontally, you're only really looking at maybe a 2-foot chunk of the water column, to where a flasher, you've got the entire water column, but you're looking it's a cone angle. So think of, you got a flashlight and you're pointing it straight down in a dark room. Wherever the light touches, that's your cone angle. If you got a wider cone angle, like a floodlight, you're going to look at a wider swath of that water column. If you've got more of a spotlight, a narrower cone angle, it's a narrower swath. The deeper you get, the bigger the footprint of that cone angle is. So you're still restricted as to what you can see. Now with something like panoptics, the advent of panoptics, we're getting the best of both worlds. We've got it's a live response of more than just a signal return. We've got shapes and proximity horizontally as well as vertically as they relate to our bait's location in the water column. And then turning it into side scan mode or panning mode, you can see great distances, and that's more for search tactics. But just actual fishing, it's taking all of that feedback and making decisions based off of what your observations are.
Awesome. That's good stuff, man. I can tell you've done this a few times before.
My first word was bish when I was, I don't know, 18 months old, or a little older than that, I guess. My parents always tell me that. It wasn't mom or dad, it was bish, which is fish.
Sure.
It's my version of fish. So I've been obsessed with fish, addicted, if you will, since my furthest back memories. So
awesome. How about what you're doing for drilling holes? That's the thing that you always hear from tournament anglers who drill.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I drill a lot of holes. When I'm out, I drill more holes than most guys do, and that comes from search fishing on tournaments, because you're trying to learn a lake you've never been to in a couple days' time, and you've got to tear that lake apart. And I've ran many different augers out there, and as far as that style of fishing for that tournament style of fishing, drilling so many holes to make it easier on your body, the best thing that I've used that's come out was what came out last year, was that Eskimo pistol bit on a 20 volt DeWalt drill. Carry 3 or 4 batteries with you. You can drill 400 or 500 holes in a day's time. Generally, I'm not doing the tournament stuff anymore, so I'm not going that intense, but it's not uncommon for me to drill 300 holes in a day if I'm searching. There's a couple lakes down where I'm at in Wisconsin now that are cribs. All the fish relate to cribs, and one of them has close to 70 cribs in it, and you're running around figuring out which cribs are holding the bigger fish, and they change throughout the season, so that search is kind of always on. But you'll get your hot cribs where you can fish them for a couple weeks, but then the fish shift and move around. So just think about your style of fishing, how many holes you plan on drilling, what type of fish you're going after. If you're fishing out of a hard shack, if you're fishing out in the open, if you're fishing out of a flip shack or a hub shack, those are all different situations that you can put yourself in. So it's taking that into account to make that decision of what your style of fishing is, to figure out what's going to be the best tool for the job, essentially. And for me, 6-inch pistol bit all day long.
Awesome.
So
you live in southern Wisconsin?
Yep,
huh?
Southwestern Wisconsin.
Yeah, what's ice fishing like down there?
Hasn't even started yet.
Not right now, but what is it like?
Yeah, absolutely. So it's
culture?
a different vibe for sure. I grew up in North Dakota, and just to put that into perspective, the entire population of the state of North Dakota is like 750,000. Wisconsin 7.5 million, so it's 10 times the amount of people. And then I'm about an hour southwest of Madison, Wisconsin, where I'm at, and there's a lot of people. And I fish the lakes in Madison, which is kind of cool and not cool at the same time. But essentially it boils down to extremely pressured fish, so you've got to be on point with your jigging cadence. If you do anything wrong, especially those big bluegills, anything over 9 inches, they've seen everything under the sun. And that's where, like, again, St. Paul Ice Show, I'm scouring for new plastics, different shapes these fish have not seen before, to go down. But you got to start your jigging cadence as soon as your jig enters the water, and pound it all the way down to where the fish are at, and then work those fish. And every single fish is a reward, and that's challenge. I actually enjoy fishing very pressured water, because if I can have a successful day out on the ice on extremely pressured water, I know I'm doing something right.
We were talking tournament tactics for recreational anglers. There's something I didn't ask you about that you wanted to talk about.
Probably pre-planning, gathering information before you ever step foot on the ice. That's another big part. Doing your homework. Getting online, looking back at fishing reports. I know the internet forums have kind of died, but now we've got Facebook groups. And if you can go back if you're not just looking at the last 2 weeks before you go out, you want to go back last year and see what was going on this time of year for those seasonal patterns on the body of water you're after. You can go back 4, 5, 6, 7 years and find those old internet fishing forums and dig up that information. But I guess that would be the only thing.
Josh Clawson, thanks so much for coming on the show.
Yeah, thanks a lot for having me.
Really appreciate it. It's some great insight. We want to have you on again, but get you back out on the show floor and talking with all the people that are here that I'm sure are enjoying getting a chance to talk to you out there.
I'd be glad to do it. Thanks for having me, Chris.
Awesome. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. We'll talk to you next time.